Thank you for joining me. We did try this live stream earlier, had some technical difficulties. So second go around, a little impromptu without much advance notice. I do apologize for that. But I've had some conversations with some owner operators and some small fleet owners, some drivers this past week. And there seems to be some commonality, especially over the course of the last year or so. And so I thought maybe I would kind of jump on, address some of these issues, and hopefully get enough people here to join me to get some feedback. First off, about the strike, I'm looking through social media. I see at least two different dates for a potential trucker strike. One is slated for December 9th. There's another one, I guess, for October. What is it? October, excuse me, one moment. 16th. Will it happen? Who knows? My thoughts on this, and I'm not a driver, is that if I was the organizers of either one of these, one should reach out to the other and come up with one date, right? We've seen too many times in recent years, anytime one of these protests or, strikes are going to happen, we're going to march on DC, there's a handful of people that show up, less than 100, and even the organizers doesn't even show up half the time, right? So it kind of becomes almost like a laughing stock, and the people that organize this on your behalf make you a laughing stock. I wouldn't put any faith into these individuals that aren't even going to show up for something that they organized. I think it's sad. You put in your time, effort, your loss of income to go show up for this, and then they don't. It's very unfortunate. But like I said, I think that if it were me and I was, behind organizing one of these, I would be reaching out to any of the other organizers for these other dates and saying, hey, let's kind of come together. Let's join forces. I'll bring my followers. You bring yours, right? And potentially grow this thing. I think one of them only had like 11. Let me just go back and verify. Yeah, there's like 11 followers for that one. I can't really see how many are on the other one, but it's just like with the port strike, right? Like you guys had every opportunity to jump in with them, and it didn't happen for whatever reason. And they may very well go on strike again if they don't get the issues resolved. I believe, what is it, January 15th? Correct me if I'm wrong. That, if they don't finish negotiations on some of the automation and things that they hadn't settled yet. I think the only thing that they really did, for the most part, settle was the, what was it, a 62% pay increase over the course of 6 years or something. That was I think one of the main things that they did manage to agree upon. I think they had asked for more initially, but that's all part of negotiation, right? You start wherever, but yeah, absolutely. I would be reaching out if this is really something serious that carriers want to do. Hey, more power to you, because as in some of the recent discussions that I've had and discussions over the last year, drivers especially, you guys get kind of treated like dirt. In my humble opinion, there's a lot of facilities when you go to pick up or deliver, they don't have facilities for drivers. And again, for those of you joining, just coming on, I would love your feedback on some of this. But yeah, drivers kind of get the short end of the stick. They constantly, they'll pick up a load, it's got tracking, then they get constant text messages, phone calls, things like this. It's so much of it is unnecessary, right? They get screwed over on pay, brokers not paying, brokers not doing their due diligence and vetting carriers who inevitably end up turning around and double brokering to another unsuspecting carrier. Between all the fraud that we deal with, it goes on and on and on, right? And quite honestly, without getting the federal government involved, I think that there should be an industry standard as to the amounts that are at a bare minimum for things such as TANU, detention, layover, etc. Because it's all over the place, right? And oftentimes there's no mention of it in your setup or on your rate confirmation at all. So you're basically at the broker's mercy, right? Some shippers don't pay detention, layover, or TANU. I've dealt with that personally. But we had a policy in place that, because your agreement is with the broker, not with the shipper, right? It's not up to the shipper to decide that, you're allowed detention. That's your agreement with the broker. So unless they have it stated in there that detention must be approved by, right? But there's things that you can do. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden I'm getting popular. I'm going to have to turn my phone off apparently. Where was I? I apologize. I forget. But yeah, your agreement is with the broker, not with the shipper, right? But I've seen certain times, it must be approved by the shipper, right? Well, this again is where you guys can do things to help yourselves out by, making sure that you're aware of, whichever broker. Maybe you work with a half a dozen other, brokers for loads. Make sure you know their policy for each and every single broker, right? Because if they say, detention starts after 2 hours, but you need to let us know 30 minutes prior to detention starting, make sure you're doing that, right? Don't call 7 hours later or just turn in your invoice with either your time in, your time out, because it makes it a lot more difficult, to actually get you that detention, okay? Because you didn't follow the policy. So there's things like that. Even beyond, things like detention, there's, you get clean bill of ladings, unless it says subject to count or subject to inspection, you've got a clean bill. There's no reason for the broker to hold up or withhold payment or delay payment in any way, shape, or form. And here again, in a perfect world, and I didn't get into how it would potentially work out, but I think that if a broker doesn't pay carriers after a certain period of time, that their authority should be put on hold until those carriers are paid, right? I went over this with a friend of mine, and when we started looking into the brokerage and going back to one of my examples of, my checking out of Google reviews on a certain company, So like when I prospect, one of the first things I do is I look at that, company's Google review. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, ABC Manufacturing out of Dallas, Texas. I've got additional truck, carrier relationships in the Dallas area, or that run a dedicated lane to Dallas, and they're asking me to find them some freight outbound from Dallas. So I look at ABC Manufacturing, and if I see on the Google reviews listed down there, let's say they've got 50 reviews, but 30 of them are, had a 10 a.m. delivery appointment or pickup appointment. It's now 7 p.m., still don't have a door, right? Things like this. I check out receivers as well. So, when we were going over and checking out this broker who's, withheld payment without any valid reason, right? When we looked them up and checked their Google reviews, that broker had numerous, a literal plethora of reviews from carriers of non-payment, slow payment, all of these things. So immediately that's kind of struck me as, well, why is their authority not being put on hold, right? If they're not paying carriers, yeah, you can file under bond, you can fall back and invoice the shipper, but if their authority gets put on hold, I think that by that happening, that's another step beyond, having a carrier file on their bond that would be detrimental to that broker, right? So, not to mention the simple fact that you don't want to spend, days, weeks, possibly, filing on the bond, getting, and that whole process and how that works, tracking down the customer, invoicing the customer, all of this takes time, right? And if you're an owner operator and you don't have any assistance, this takes a lot of time out of your day. I see a lot of things that are so unfair in this industry, in the period of time that I've spent in it thus far, and some of it's just it's outrageous to me. Another example is I had another friend of mine, reached out to me, said, "Hey, should I file on this broker's bond?" Well, what's going on? Well, I've got a claim bill of lading. They don't want to pay me. They're saying that there's I don't remember if it was a shortage or damaged product for a claim or something. But I said, well, what is your bill of lading saying? He said, nothing. They just signed it and, gave it back to me. Okay. I said, send it over to me. Let me make sure that there's, little something, because he was clearly upset. Right. And sometimes it's easier for someone, kind of outside of the situation to sort of look at things. And so I looked at it. Sure enough, there was no notation on there, subject to count, subject to inspection. There was no note of any damage, shortages, anything. Right. So, we tried to deal with the broker. Broker basically, from the word hello, this guy's blood pressure, he was like a steam pot, he wasn't willing to discuss. He wasn't willing to talk. He wasn't willing to hear anything. Just, and I don't know, quite honestly, that guy might have had a coronary between then and now, because he could not have been healthy. Another unfair thing that I see that carriers have to deal with, drivers, is that if there's an overage, right, and this happens, let's say you're supposed to pick up 28 pallets, but they load 29 or whatever. They leave that other skid of product on your truck, right, and leave that for you to deal with. Now you've got to, bring it back to the shipper. You end up losing out on your next load for what? Right? And too often time, I think that it in my mind, that pallet should come off at that receiver And while it's not the receiver's fault that the shipper loaded too much product onto the truck, right? It should stay there, and the receivers will get pissed off enough that shippers will have to start making sure that they're loading the correct amount on the truck, right? There's no way in what world, what universe is this at all in any way, shape, or form the driver's fault, especially when they're not allowed to count, inspect, or anything, right? They're not allowed to see what's on there or anything. Maybe they're loading damaged product on there. You don't know. But then you get held accountable for it. You're the one that gets dinged for it. Oh, we've got a claim. Why? I wasn't even allowed to see what they put on the truck. Right? It's very unjust to carriers that all of these things are happening. And I'm not a carrier, I'm a broker, and it pisses me off, right? Because a lot of you guys out there are my friends. We've gotten to know each other very well over the years, and when I hear some of this stuff, it's outrageous. And quite honestly, I mean, you guys truly are the eyes and ears of America. You really, truly are. And I mean, I talked to some of you guys, and some of the stories I hear, I'm thinking, there's no way that happened. But it does, right? And I'm not going to go into specific examples, but, whether it's things with produce or meat or whatever, some of the things that you guys see that, affect the end consumer, right? I think that carriers need to be held in a much higher regard than what they are. I think that they deserve better pay, right? And if you guys want to strike, I say, I'm all for it. I really, truly am. But get organized. You can't have half a dozen different, organizers, and 20 people over here, 50 people over here, 120 over there, and 9 over there. You can't do it. The last big shutdown was what, back in the 70s or early 80s? Correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody knows, let me know. I've got the live chat open. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the 70s, but they just stopped, right? But everybody's out looking for number one. Nobody wants to get together and join to do anything. And it's just like anything else going on in this country, right? You guys have a lot more power than what I don't know whether you don't realize it or what, or you just don't get organized enough. Everybody wants to point fingers, whether it comes to, what market rates are. Brokers don't determine market rates. They'll negotiate the rate they're getting from their customer to you, and then I guess that's up to you whether you decide to accept that rate or not. If you have a good enough relationship with that broker, or you're trying to establish a relationship with that broker, right? And with the way the industry is now, it's like the wild, wild west, right? This is another reason why I always preach on my channel about building relationships, having that synergy, right? Where this mentality of brokers working for shippers came in, I'll never know. Whoever started spreading that rumor needs their ass whipped, because that is not what you're supposed to do. You are an intermediary. You are supposed to be that matchmaker between the shipper or your customer and the carrier, right? But that's not the case. It's always, I'm working for the customer. We'll beat up the carrier and we'll make this much money. No, that's not how that's supposed to work. And I wish I had one of those little clips, you remember that commercial? That's not how this works at all. I didn't really think about it till just now, but yeah, it's bogus, and as far as the market, yeah, there is a lack of freight compared to the amount of capacity that's out there right now. That is a big factor. You know, the whole supply and demand thing. That is a big factor that determines rates, market rate for, you know, so you can't really point the finger at brokers for that. You can point the fingers at the brokers if they're trying to gouge for an excessive margin on the load, right? And that's where it comes into building relationships. Some brokers are better than others, right? There's good brokers and there's bad brokers. Same thing with carriers. There's bad carriers and there's good carriers. But for myself personally, like I said, when I am trying to build a relationship, you know, I keep those good carriers around, and they get preference over anything, right? And if I have to go back to fight for more money, I will absolutely do that, because that relationship is valuable to me. I don't want to work the spot market. You know, like I said, it's like the Wild West out there, you know, or in the words of Forrest Gump, you know, like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. You can vet that carrier, you know, through every possible scenario, right? All the software that you have, and you still don't truly know, right? You know, the overall picture of that carrier as a whole looks good, but you could have one bad driver, right, to screw everything up. And what that carrier does is a direct reflection upon me to my customer. So if my carriers are happy, they're going to do a good job. Yeah. So wouldn't it behoove me to build that relationship, you know, help keep that carrier in business and strengthen my relationship with my customer? You see where I'm going with all of this? I don't know where that mentality came from or who spread that rumor, but it astounds me every time I hear that. If you guys have any input while I'm kind of venting here, by all means, chime in. Um, you know, but yeah, like I said, I think that overall drivers and carriers get taken advantage of as a whole. I think there's a lot of misinformation that goes around. I think a lot of you, like I said, you know, everybody looks out for number one. Everybody looks out for number one, and I get that, right? I do, but at the same time, all of these things start happening. You can't fight it one-on-one. You've got to join together, right? And you can't have a small, you know, following to do that, or it becomes a farce. You know, you guys deal with everything from insurance rates and people trying to scam, predatory trucking, you know, all kinds of stuff, high fuel prices, repairs. Some of you I talked to, you guys have had, I don't know what's going on. You take your truck in for something and, you know, oh, all fixed. You get 5 miles down the road, damn thing's broke again, right? They didn't really fix it. In fact, they made it worse. What's up with that? You know? And they don't want to honor their mistakes. And some of these are, you know, big companies that should. I don't know. But it's just some things that have been kind of weighing on my mind, I guess, a little bit. You know, like I said, over the course of the last year, you know, a lot of you that I've talked to, whether we work together regularly or not, whether you reached out to me via email to discuss some things, you know, whether you're friends of mine, you know, there seem to be a lot of common pain points, I guess. And this is some of them. You know, even the food that's available to you guys, right? You know, the prices that you have to pay at truck stops for toothpaste or anything, right? Astronomical compared to, you know, what you could grab at the local Walmart or something. It's predatory is what it is. It's predatory, and you guys bear the brunt of it. But and honestly, like I said earlier, you guys are the eyes and ears of America. You guys see everything, right? You guys deserve a lot more appreciation than what you get. And just like with the current, hurricane and things going on, yeah, there's a lot of individuals banding together to help bring in supplies and things like that. But it's truckers that really get stuff in there. They're bringing in fuel, building materials, all of these things, so that when this thing is over, everything can be rebuilt and as quickly as possible, right, to restore order, so that people can have sleep with a roof over their head at night, and so that they got a warm meal in their belly. Truckers do that. So if you guys shut down for any length of time, hell, for 3 days, America would feel it. But there's got to be enough of you to do it. There's probably some other things that I'm not pointing out, but it's just really something that I feel very strongly about, especially since I know many of you. And I guess it bothers me. I don't know, maybe it shouldn't bother me as much as it does. Maybe I feel too much, but, I guess I just had to say something. I had to get it off my chest. And I hope that some of this was helpful, or, and if you disagree with me, agree with me, let me know. And as always, if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, there's my email. If you ever have anything that you want to share, if you ever want to, jump on the show with me, by all means, shoot me an email. Okay. I'll be more than happy to talk to you, share whatever it is you're sharing. You want me to share, have you on. This is what it's all about. It's what the YouTube channel is about. It's what the Facebook group is about. It's all about networking, and so that all of us can grow, right? When I first got into this industry, there was so much negativity. I almost quit after about my second or third month. It was nasty. Me being brand new, had just finished training. There were still some things that were not divulged during training, right? That I had questions to, and they kind of didn't really arise until I started to kind of, start working. And so, there was times I'd be sitting there late at night or something, and I'd, jump in a Facebook group and ask questions. And, oh, you don't know that. You quit now. What is that? What is that? We're supposed to be here to build each other up, at least in my mind, right? I try to be everybody's biggest cheerleader. I really do. I try to be positive, which isn't always easy, but, I do. And I just don't see the reason for it, Anyway, I'll stop ranting. And again, for those of you that tuned in, I appreciate you joining with me. Like I said, this was kind of the second go around. I had some technical difficulties there first time around. So, yeah. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you all back here probably tomorrow. As always, be kind to one another. Bye-bye now.